Okay, seeing the fact that I confirmed that it's 2 p.m., I'd like to commence a meeting of the Englishman River Water Service Joint Venture. At this time, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the Coast Salish nations on whose traditional territory this meeting will take place. Thank you very much. I would like to have an approval of the agenda, if I may, at this time, please. Could I have a mover and a seconder? I moved by Councillor Harrison, seconded by Councillor Rogers. Are there any omissions or errors to the agenda as presented?
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, this is still Englishman River. This is still Englishman River Water Services. Mr. Harrison, are you part of the Englishman River Water Services?
Sorry, I was looking at the agenda for the 2 p.m. for the Arrowsmith. Is this still the Englishman River?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay.
So
never mind. I cannot move it then. Yes, Mr. Rogers is quite correct.
Thank you, Director Rogers, for pointing out. Good point, Mr. Harrison. Nice try, but you got to wait for the next one. Thank you very much. If I may call again, I would like to move it and a seconder anyways for approval of the agenda this time, please. Thank you, Mayor Main. Do I have a seconder from Director Wallace? Thank you very much. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? All those opposed? That is carried. Thank you. I would like now to move for the minutes of the Englishman River Water Service Management Board meeting held November 25th, 2019. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation, please, that the minutes be adopted at this particular time? Thank you, Director Wallace. Seconded by Director Rogers. Thank you. Are there any questions or for staff or any discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda would be the number 6 would be under invited presentations. The City of Parksville staff have a presentation regarding the update on the commissioning of the ERW Water Services plant. If we could ask for that now, please.
Good afternoon. I'm just going to share my screen with everybody. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
It looks good. Thank you, Heidi.
Sounds good. Good afternoon to the board. My name is Heidi, Development Engineer for the City of Parksville. The presentation will provide an update on the Englishman River Water Service construction projects, Watershed, River, and Rainfall status, commissioning and operating of the treatment plant, and our ongoing works. Construction project update. The Contract 1 works consists of the raw water intake, raw water pump station, water treatment plant, and transmission main to Top Ridge Reservoir. Substantial completion was completed for this contract in May 2019, commencing a 1-year maintenance period. Contract 2 work consists of the installation of a 4.6 kilometer of transmission main from the treatment plant to Springwood Reservoir. Substantial completion was completed in April 2019, commencing a 2-year maintenance period, and expect to reach final acceptance in April 2021. Watershed and rainfall update. So this is an overview map that shows the location of the Arrowsmith Dam, nearby snow station, location of the river intake and river gauge. Due to the location and elevation of the dam, last week was the first time, the earliest of this year, that we're able to visit the dam. The dam is overflowing with full capacity. So this slide shows the historical record of our snow pillow. Here's a photo as of this morning. The gray band is the minimum and maximum range. The blue line is 2020 record, and the green is last year's of 2019. This year's snow level from January to March is much lower as compared to the average. However, the snow picked up in April, and we are currently over 0.5 meters, just a hair below the normal average. Rainfall. This graph is a graph of the historical monthly rainfall from 2015 to 2020. The red lines are maximum minimum range. The dashed line is the average. The black line is 2020 rainfall. It appears we are below average. March and April months are drier than normal. Englishman River level. Historical record shows the level in the summer months is approximately 1.1 to 1.3, pretty consistent as we have control of the flow from the dam. However, in the winter months, the river level is about 1.4 to 4.5 meters, commonly seeing a fluctuation of about 2 meters depending on the rainfall events. It would be 4 to 4.5 meters with the back-to-back rainfall events. ERWS commissioning and operating updates. We completed the testing and commissioning of the raw water intake pump station treatment plan late last year in December 2019, including the 21-day startup test. Shortly after the commissioning and startup works, we received the operating permit from VHA. This was in December 2019. We altered the design strategy to limit the waste being discharged to the RDN wastewater treatment plant. With that, on-site temporary pond was constructed and utilized while a permanent solution is in progress and will be carrying out with a dewatering geobag system. With the above strategy, beginning of March, the plant was brought online 24/7. Prior to that, it was partially ran or in idle. Currently, the productions on the well are scaled back to allow more run times on the treatment plant. Having the plant operated continuously helped to eliminate the air buildup in the main lines. Currently, the treatment plant is treating the water at an average rate of 3.6 million liters per day and expect to reach 13 million liters per day during the summer. The plant is capable of meeting the design max day demand of 16 million liters per day. So here is an overview of our water consumption trend. The black lines are total yearly usage from 2015 to 2019. The yellow lines are how much it has drawn from the river from 2015 to 2019. The red line is this year's consumption, 2020. It shows our average is about 3.6 million liters per day. There was a peak day of 7.4 million liters per day in April due to the COVID, and our summers are drier. The green band is the average usage from the News Bay area of 650 cubic meter per day to 850 cubic meter per day. The blue line is how much is being drawn from the river this year. Normally in the winter, the river wouldn't be used due to the high turbidity level. However, with the treatment plant now online, we will continue to utilize more surface water from the river as opposed to our wells. So our raw water intake structures and operations. Daily, we monitor the intake structure to ensure the screens are free of sand. As mentioned earlier, the river water level fluctuates up to 2 meters during heavy rainfall events. As expected, experience higher turbidity level during storm events. The recent rain event has suspended the operation of the plant for 1 day to allow for removal of the sand, rocks, boulder that was built outside of the intake structure. So it was this storm event where the river level was at 4.5 meters. and had to suspend the operation of the treatment plant for 1 day. It had moved large boulder, rock, logs, sand to the intake, restricting flow entering the system. So our water testing and sampling, to date, we found the river turbidity level can go from 0.4 to 200 NTU during storm event. Here are some photos of the raw water samples. During storm events, higher coagulant was used. However, we expect to ease off or eliminate the usage of coagulant during summer months. Turbidity level after treatment is less than 0.1 NTU, and our permit is 1 NTU. We are well below that level. pH adjustment. The raw water pH is measured at 6 to 7.5. This level is within the range. However, it was suggested to increase the pH level to 8.8 to 9.2 to provide corrosion controls to our distribution system and our end users. Our ongoing works. We continue to work closely with our partners, consultant, contractors, and supplier to optimize treatment process and address deficiency that was noted during the commissioning stage. These items included constructing a dewatering system to handle the waste flow, monitoring the system to reduce the wear and tear on the pump seal assembly at the raw water pump station, addressing and bringing the sodium hydroxide pump number 2 online as standby, addressing the stain and discolorations on the buildings, implementing recommendations from the safety plan, including installations of the chlorine gas detection and improvements to the raw water intake for confined space access. So those are the ongoing works. Project photos. Here is an overview of our pump and treatment process. Water from the river intake is being pumped to the treatment plant, going through the sand separator, coagulant process, strainer, primary filtration, UV, chlorine, pH adjustment, with the last stage is to pump to the reservoir for storage. The rejected water from the primary treatment process is sent to the secondary membrane for further treatment and goes through the same process. The rejected water from the second system gets neutralized and direct to the pond. The system is very efficient, 99%. Only 1% of the raw river water goes to the waste stream. Picture of the raw water pump station on the outside. Inside the raw water pump station, raw water pumps. So this is our intake structure. This was where the large rocks and boulder log being washed to the intake. It built up. The build-up was outside the intake structure, restricting flow entering the chamber and pipeline. Compressive air bus system. This process is to bus the sand from the raw water intake structure. Photo of the sand separator. This is to remove all the sand before sending the water to the treatment plant. Photo of the treatment plant building. Photo of the strainer. All the flow entering the treatment plant goes through the strainer to remove sand, twig, large particles, etc. So it doesn't damage our filtration system. Primary filtration and membrane. Torre ultrafiltration module. There are about 9,000 strands in one of those tubes. The strand is hollow inside. On the strand, there are multiple of small holes in the size of 0.1 micron. The water gets pulled inside the hollow strand to filter out large particles. Backwash process. This process is required to clean the membrane. The rejected water from the primary backwash filtration stage go to the secondary treatment stage. are UV disinfection. Water goes through the UV water. It passes to the membrane. This process is to kill the bacteria and virus. Secondary filtration stage. The second stage brings water treatment efficiency to 99%. Only 1% of the raw river goes to waste stream. Our chemical room. This is where the coagulant, chlorine mixture, cleaning agents, sodium hydroxide, sodium bisulfite are stored. Our pump room, the last stage, where water is pumped to the reservoir for storage. Thank you. Any questions?
Chair O'Brien,
Yes, I'm just waiting for the screen to get back up. I just wanted to start by saying, Heidi, that was one of the best presentations I've ever seen on the ERWS and so forth, and it's very, very complex system that we have, but you described it very well, and I thank you very much for an excellent report. And what I would do is suggest at this time, if we may, if you could send us an attachment, a copy of your report to all the participants at today's meeting. You handled it well, as on screen, but our screens are kind of small to actually get the fine details of it. So I would appreciate if you could maybe send that either, whether it's going to be on this attachment or sent to us via mail. Anyways, I think it'd be helpful for all of the participants to have that presentation on hand to refer to. Is that possible, Heidi?
Yep.
Thank you very much. And then, so now I have a couple questions, but I'll open it up to the floor now to questions from everyone else. Director Rogers, I believe I heard you asking.
Yeah, I don't know if if I'm still on there or not.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, one of the slides showed a reference to pump seal assembly damage, and maybe it was due to the high levels of sand. I'm just wondering what experience we've had with that.
So Heidi, I believe the question is about the pump seals. Anyways, you mentioned anyways that they sound like they're failing prematurely and so forth. And I believe Director Rogers is asking, was that due to excessive sand content? And has there been some method as to protecting those seals from being worn out so quickly?
Yeah, for sure. We are monitoring the sand to determine is it the sand that's causing the wear and tear. Joe, do you have anything further to add to that item?
No, I think you've captured the crux of it. They did, when they went in and did an initial assessment, they found some slight alignment correction to be repaired, and that was undertaken. And so staff right now are working with the suppliers of the pump seal people. I believe it's ITT in this regard. On any account to determine if there's any changes that need to be taking place with regards to the sand loading in the river, you know, to determine if it's a chronic problem or if it was something to do with the events there of that February rainfall where we had 4.5 meters of river height. So we're just following through that with the pump manufacturer supplier to determine, I guess, where to go from there.
Thank you. If I may ask, Heidi, can you give us our screen back and remove the report so that I can see when people put up the hands? I have a limited screen right now, if I may. Thank you. We can go back to it if there's other questions.
Can you hear me, Doug?
I can still hear you, Director Rogers. Yes. So
yeah, I had a problem with my Zoom, so I didn't hear any of Heidi's response relative to the pump seal assembly in the sand.
Okay, I believe it would be good if we could. Can you cancel that report off the screen, Heidi? Can you show that, or who's ever hosting?
Sorry, I'm trying to.
I don't know about anybody else's, but I'm down to 3 participants in the meeting here.
Heidi, if you just hit the escape button on your keyboard, it might work.
Yeah, I tried that.
Yeah, all I'm seeing on the screen is her presentation.
Oh, okay, stop share. Okay, yeah.
You got her. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I got it. Thank you, Joe.
Okay. Okay, so if I understood correctly, we had a bit of a Zoom blank out there. If we could, Joe, you explained anyways what happened on the seals on the pumps anyways, due to the sand, that was not transmitted properly to all members. If you could repeat that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, for Councillor O'Brien. So you'll see back on one of the slides that Heidi had showed, it had that high 4.5 meter river flow, and subsequent to that is when we had some events blocking that intake. And it wasn't long in that same period we noted some scarring on the pump seal shaft when we pulled that pump out with the seal problem. So staff we're working with the pump supplier, seal manufacturer, just to determine if it's due to kind of like a specific defined event, say that big rainfall, or if there's operational changes that we need to take place, or if there are changes that need to happen to the seal and how that seal is lubricated to ensure it can basically function in that environment. So that's kind of where we're at. We're just following up with the manufacturer.
Thank you. And Director Rogers, did you receive that loud and clear?
Yeah, I heard that. Thank you. And just a follow-up with respect to that. Looking at that rain event on the height of the river, sort of if we go historically, what has been the historic occurrence of those types of river heights and the depth that could cause that intake, where we'd have to do that again and we'd have such a high turbidity level, but also the costs of going out and cleaning that out and the frequency of shutting the system down for a day. We're just trying to put that into a historical context.
So when we have rain events back to back, it fluctuates the river water level to about 3 to 4 meters. So with that, we will monitor the rainfall, the forecast of the rainfall, and clear the blockage of debris around the intake to minimize future occurrences. Where required to make operation change to respond to rain events. Our last step would be to revert back to the well system. This event usually occurs in the winter, and we do have capacity in our well system to meet that demand.
Okay, thank you.
If I could may just follow up on Director Rogers' line of questioning here. When that intake closure took place, I understand it was a one-day closure because of the storm event that happened. So I'm assuming it was enough water in that river that that's when rocks start to float. And so it would appear that the intake was plugged. I would just like to know, obviously the air burst system wasn't satisfactory enough to clear that intake. Was it a manual method that you used? Did you bring in an excavator, or how did you actually clean that intake? Because I've been down there, that's a fairly large surface. If you could just point out some obvious facts to me, maybe it would be helpful.
Joe, could I pass this question to you?
Sure, Heidi. If I may, Councillor O'Brien. Yeah, it was a mechanical operation. So a couple of operators, shovels. I believe they used a hydrovac truck trying to get, referring to that profile view of that intake system. There's that like a concrete structure that sits just on the side of the river, and then that immediately dumps into a bit of a sediment pit. That pit also got full, and so that requires developing a method to shut that off from the river so that staff can go in and literally manhandle via shovel and or vac truck to reach that stuff out. It's a pretty long haul. It's quite a as you've been to the site, it's got some elevation to it. So yeah, that's it. Manual work.
Okay, so as I see going forward, that is going to be a possible issue that you're going to be monitoring closely, because we, as it appears, we're getting more of our share of high storm events, that kind of are historically not been there before. So you sound like you get it under control, and I know you're just going to get better the more that you actually treat. So that's good. My only other question, if I may, maybe to Heidi or Joe, when you talked about during these events, the sand removal is very critical anyways to protect all the rest of the equipment downstream. So to me, seeing those big sand filters anyways, it looks like that's got to be a lot of sand that's coming out here. My only question is just practical. So how are those sand filters emptied out, and is it just dumped out the back pit type of thing? It's not actually dumped into the containment pond, or is it? I'm just wondering what's happening with all of that sand and the buildup that is gathered at that time.
Well, after it comes out of the sand filters, I'm not actually certain. I don't know if Heidi has come across that in her dealings with the operations, but I believe that is still considered clean sand, and it can be used, on city premises or property for stockpile or for other uses. But I'm not sure exactly where they're stockpiling it or where they're using it. So.
And that's exactly where I was going with that, exactly what the use was at, and it can be used in any of our operations.
Yeah.
I believe you were referring to the sand separator. So the system itself is automatic in a way that it does have a pipe that clean and discharge the sand to the river downstream.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Everybody else in attendance here, more questions for either Heidi?
Yeah, Chair O'Brien, if I might, through you, you asked the question about the airburst, and I didn't interpret an answer from there as to whether or not that airburst is working adequately to prevent the buildup of the sand, and also with the intake there, whether that's going to be proved to be an adequate system for cleaning that out and preventing the buildup of material, whether it's sand or rock or other debris.
Thank you, Director Rogers. As I understand it, the airburst was it's done on a regular basis. I believe it's on a timer, and it actually does a burst anyways to just clear the finer sediments and so forth. But the major event that happened, I believe, brought down material that were far greater than what the airburst pressure could handle, if I understood what Joe was saying. Was that correct, Mr. Doxey?
If I may, yes, sir. That's the idea. I mean, further kind of coming into play in this is that the plant just, I think, it went through its 20-day operating processes there in late December. So it had only been running for a couple months when this storm event happened. So the staff are still just getting used to how to run the thing and how to time those air bursts. So we'll know better in some time if we need to change the frequency of the air bursts, or if there are special treatments that we need to take for specific storm scenarios.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions at this time? Thanks very much, Heidi and Joe, for that report. It was very informative. It was nice to see this baby up and running anyways, and you got some growing pains, but that's far minor compared to anything else from other projects I've seen. So you've done a great job. Thank you very much. I would like to move on now to request if there's any delegations. I see none appearing here, as I also see that there is no correspondence coming through. As there are no delegations correspondence, does anybody have any unfinished business we'd like to carry on with at this time? Otherwise, we'd move on to reports. Any unfinished business to report? Seeing none, we would like to move on to the reports if we would. Number 10 is the report section of the agenda, which I'm not sure whether we're just reading this or would the city park. Oh yeah, here we are. The City of Parksville staff, please introduce the first report on the agenda regarding 10.1 Englishman River Water Service 2020-2024 Financial Plan Report. If I could ask for that presentation now.
If I may, through the chair, Councillor O'Brien, I'll just go, I won't read it line by line, but I'll just cover the crux of this. You'll see in the section for the 2020 capital projects there, the ATS that was approved in 2019 didn't get finally completed until until this year, or late last year, and we're expected to go through some testing here this year, and you'll see that that money's adjusted in the budget accordingly on page, I believe it's 11 of the Excel sheets attached. Further along there was at the river intake that was just discussed a little bit earlier, where staff have to go in and do manual work. There was a handrail installed or added to the project along the staircase to improve safety. That cost has also been, I think it was $25,000. Oh, I'm sorry, no, that was I believe around $20,000, and that anyway has also gone in under this year's budget. It's already installed. You'll also note that there is a capital contingency of $25,000 that's been added into the budget, and it's just to handle any kind of still having change orders as we go through commissioning and testing, and as noted later on with the settling pond and the discharge thing circumstances, there still are changes that are coming up, so that just provided some sort of cushion there. The largest new addition or change, I guess, is the settling ponds, and so that is to deal with the wastewater being generated from the plant. So it's in the summer it would be relatively clean backwash water from the filter system that Heidi described there, that the microfibers located in the white PVC tubes there. That discharge water would then be going through these settling ponds. The notion now is that they're going to be installing a geobag type system, so it's a filtered bag. Uses a larger pore space and a bit of coagulant to force any of the treatment coagulants. It forces them to bind back together and get caught and settled out, so they don't end up in the wastewater stream. Ultimately, the water itself is clean and can go to the environment with permit from health. So the cost for design and supply and installation of the geostatic bag system, so that's now down to $400,000 for design, engineering, construction. And that, let's see, we've also got notable changes there. We have $50,000 in the budget for the Aquifer storage and recovery project. Just for timing, a lot of the legwork, I believe, is done on this project, but there is some time and efforts needed to go back and generate a report and some basically confirm some of the findings out of that. That's been pushed off right now for a year, just until we get a solid and permanent program manager, get some of our staffing changes, I guess, addressed, and then also just letting staff deal with the commissioning processes that are at play right now before we start kind of the next kick of the project. There's another thing that was pushed forward, and that was the new vehicle that was estimated at $35,000. That went out from 2020 to the 2024 budget. It allows some time to determine if a lease of vehicle usage, like a pickup truck, or if that's the right piece of equipment, or maybe there's more pieces of equipment, but they could be needed differently. So, you know, like I say, like to determine if that needs to be a pickup truck or just leasing some space in a city pickup truck, or if there needs to be, you know, a forklift or something else that's maybe more needed by the water utility, we can deal with it at that time and better detail that out and explain the needs. So for right now, it's just parked out in the future. We are working right now on an asset management plan for the plant, and that will get us up, and well, it will facilitate us completing our grant requirements for mid-June. Operational, there's a change in 2021 from 1.5 to 2 FTEs. Let's see. The other item in there is down below. There's some safety topics that are suggested, and one of those is that water chamber that again that came up. The sediment pit that's immediately at the bottom of the river intake, so that side inlet river intake, it has that sediment pit and chamber. And then one of the things that got flagged by the safety review was that it needed to be secured from the river safely, so that if workers were inside there, water level came up, it wouldn't harm or injure the worker. So we're working on that with the consultant to determine what the best provision for that is. And that kind of goes hand in hand with just learning how to operate this thing inside of storm events and during regular operations as well. So right now, I think they're estimated at about $20,000, and that would be coming out of the operational contingency that you see in the budget. The other safety item that had come up there was a chlorine gas monitor, and then having that hooked up into the SCADA system. And that was a $50,000 tag, but we took that out of the capital, but we're funding that from the operational contingency as well. So originally, I think in the preliminary budget, you will have seen that at a $200,000 operating contingency, and it's now down to 150. And then that $50,000 got pushed into the capital side of the budget spreadsheet. Let's see. The other item that was, I think, added to this budget, it was, or should have been in previous budgets, and that was the street lights. They were included as part of the development permit, and so they've been installed as per that development permit, but for whatever reason, the line item there for that account just didn't make it into the budget until now. So we have now rectified that. Otherwise, the budget itself is attached, and I will maybe rely on our finance director if there's any detailed questions to also potentially chime in, but otherwise the recommendations are per the report. And if there are any questions, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Joe, for that report. I know I was going through the reams of paper here, following along as I could. What I would like to do, if for this particular meeting, for the items under 10.1 for the financial plan report, I'd like to read out the separate items. There's 4 items. I'd like to read that out instead of passing it all as one group type of thing, because I have a suggested proposed alternative for one of them, and obviously if anybody else has as well, this is the time to do it. So at the first particular one that I will read out anyways is on the agenda under 10.1, and then it's number 1, that the report from the Englishman River Water Service Management Committee dated May 4th, 2020, entitled Englishman River Water Service, ERWS, commissioning update and amended budget approval be received. I would just ask if there's any comments or amendments or proposal alternatives to that. If that's okay, I'll move on to the next one, but feel free to jump in at this time. Seeing none, I'll move on to number 2. That reads that the Englishman River Water Service Management Board approved the 2024 amended financial plan attached as Schedule A for the Englishman River Water Service. I have a proposed alternative for this one. I'll certainly take any from the floor as well at this time if there's any suggestions to that. Seeing none, I will just raise what I have and just to give background here. That section anyways, if I would like to, that the board agree to further amend the financial plan attached as Schedule A by removing the $50,000 allocated to the ASR project from 2021 and from the 5-year plan, and approve the plan as amended. And so as background, it's if you see your Schedule A under the financial report in the details and your package, page 11 and 12 refers in the financial report to the ASR. Mr. Doxey just mentioned about the ASR still being in there, and is possibly looking for a further up to $50,000 is what we're pushed out anyways, just for as a further reports to discuss about the ASR. Those that are unfamiliar, I'm sorry, I just jumped in. ASR is referring to the Aquifer Storage and Recovery System that had been proposed anyways in previous years and had gone through numerous testing stages, and well, it found out that it was not going to be satisfactory. So what I'm asking for the board anyways at this particular time is to eliminate that. In my personal opinion, I feel that this is, we've been flogging this dead horse long enough, and to allocate $50,000 further, to the staff, which is clearly, doing their best anyways to get this plant up and running. They have so much more to do than to suggest that we have to tell them to sit down and produce another report to say, yeah, we spent a lot of money on the SR, it didn't work. And so basically, here you go. But why should we be spending any more money at this particular point is my feelings. So that is why I am proposing the alternative at this time. Please open it up to the floor for any discussion.
Yeah, if I might, Chair O'Brien.
Yes, I recognize Director Rogers.
I'm not sure whether you move this. I certainly wouldn't be prepared to second it. Whether you want some discussion on it this time or whether you want that motion on the table.
I see. Thank you very much. Yes. So what I would like to do is this time is I would like to move for the amendment as read. If anybody would like, I could read it again. That the board agree to further amend the financial plan attached to Schedule A by removing the $50,000 allocated to the ASR project from 2021 and from the 5-year plan, and approve the plan as amended. So I'm moving that. I would require a seconder. Do I see a seconder? I see none. That alternative motion, oh, sorry. Now I see Mayor Main. You are still muted. Mayor Main is still muted.
Someday I'll get used to these things just about the time when we don't need them anymore.
Yeah, I know.
I will second this for discussion purposes, if you don't mind, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor Main. This has now been seconded for discussion. Any further discussion to what I've already did my little speech? I'll open that up. Director Rogers, did you have a question on discussion on this?
Yeah, no, not a question, but I certainly will not be supporting this. I think it is quite inappropriate. I don't think there has been any summary report done that indicates that it has failed, that the system has failed. One of the main reasons for doing a summary report is to find out and is to do a report on all the results that have come. We do not have any results from those, from the testing that was done either in K Road or at Claudette. We spent a significant amount of money and several $100,000 of grant money that we applied for, but we have not prepared or published any report on the aquifer storage and recovery projects or its feasibility. And it is certainly something that, having spent those hundreds of thousands of dollars of senior government grant money on this and done the work, it is quite appropriate that we proceed in 2021 to put together a report and on that. So whether it's done with Parksville staff, whether it's done with a consultant, or whether it's done with RDN staff, it is, in my opinion, quite inappropriate not to prepare a report that on whether or not aquifer storage and recovery is a viable option for water storage. And this is for treated water storage, because the concept has been that we would take water that is treated during the winter season when there's more than adequate water coming through the treatment plant, and then we would store that treated water and be able to use it in the drier months. So it's, I think, quite inappropriate not to prepare a report that summarizes the results of the work done to date. So that's why we'll not be supporting this motion, and I think it quite inappropriate.
Thank you, Director Rogers. Any further comments? Mayor Main.
Thank you, Chair. My problem is I don't know enough about this yet. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, because we haven't received any information. Right now, it's not affecting this month's, or this year's rather, budget. It's for next year's budget. Could we not put this off until we do receive it? And is presuming and instruct staff actually to ensure that we get the report in plenty of time before the next budget is up for discussion. So in 2021, so that we can remove it at that point in time if we decide that it is applicable or not. That's just my thought process. Actually, I think it's a good time to have this conversation. So thank you for bringing it up, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Main. Any other further discussions? The chair recognizes Director Wallace.
Thank you, Chair. I've actually followed the 2012 Aquifer study quite closely, living quite close to that location. And I have to echo the comments of Mayor Main that certainly the conclusion of that study, I don't think is readily available, easy to find. Also, I think that the actual particular aquifer that was studied, I don't think is I think what's being suggested for future aquifer study for this. Just to echo Mayor Main's comments, I would like to see that perhaps we could defer this outside of the report that we have in front of us today, because it doesn't affect the 2021 budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Wallace. Director Rogers.
Yeah, if I might, your motion was to withdraw this from the 2020 to 2024 plan. That's what I don't think is viable. And I think even what Director Main and Director Wallace are saying is that it be done in 2021. There's no, it's not in the 2020 budget. And if we amended the 20 to 24, that 5-year plan, and to take it out, then we just have to come back in the fall and put it back in. So we're not looking at spending the dollars this year, it's for 2021. So, and as Director Wallace indicated, the project and the first test that was done out in the K Road site showed that it was not a viable thing out there, not because of the quality of water or anything, but because of the size of the aquifer and whether it produced enough water to make it worthwhile to put in the water main to take it from there to and back and forth to the treatment plant or for the reservoirs. So that was the matter more than the fact that it wasn't a good aquifer for it. And so the testing and the work that was done at Claudette Road has not been summarized, nor has the summary of the K Road one really been done. So it's I think we should leave it in 2021 as part of this financial plan.
Thank you, Director Rogers. I agree too. The summary reports were not really done. They were, the reports that I was referring to was the reports that were done individually for it, where they said that the aquifer did not show us a closed containment, which is what they were hoping to do. And but as you say, there was really no conclusion at that particular point. But at the same time, on those reports I read, they didn't offer any recommendations of what the next step should be either, as if there was a further step after that they learned something from it. So I am prepared to accept this, and I will remove my proposed alternative motion at this time, if that's in agreement with all. Yes, Director Wallace.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question for clarification, please, on Resolution 1 to accept the report. I believe what we're discussing for the amendment to the budget is Resolution 2. I could be wrong. Are we still on Resolution 1? I did have some questions in regards to the report itself, not the budget.
We had actually moved on from Resolution 1 to Resolution 2 at this particular time. Director Wallace, am I correct in suggesting that you have a question regarding Resolution 1?
Correct.
Just as a point, if I might, a point of order, we did not have any vote on resolution number one. There's been no motion
Right.
yet.
Okay, yeah, so I get that now too. So we should have actually moved number 1 first. And so Director Wallace, let's go back to item number 1, that the report from the Englishman River Water Service Management Committee dated May 4th, 2020, entitled Englishman River Water Service ERWS Commissioning Update and Amended Budget Approval be received. I need a mover and seconder for that, please.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Gonna have conversation on it?
And discussion, please.
Need a discussion?
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Yeah. Sorry. We should have discussion before calling the vote. Sorry. Yes. Any discussion regarding the number 1?
Yes, thank you. And
As
through
Director Wallace, yes.
Thank you. So I just had a question, perhaps through the chair to staff on page 7 in reference to the geosynthetic bag filtration system. I've been following the filtration settlement ponds to this point. This is my first introduction of this new method of reducing the discharge to the Pollution Control Center. And I note in your report that you mention that there are enhanced environmental benefits of this bag filtration system. Can you please explain to me what those would be?
If I may, through the chair, Councillor O'Brien, the enhanced environmental benefits are largely concentrated around the ability to treat the waste without having to use the economically intensive or energy intensive wastewater treatment plant processes. So it's most of it's geared around, say, like greenhouse gas emissions, not having to pipe it, not using capacity up in the system, in the downstream gravity system. So you're avoiding capital costs, upsizing, treatment cost, energy costs. That's largely the biggest savings there. Otherwise, we're able to take out the contaminants, the alum in the winter, and take that out effectively and have it hauled off to waste without, like I say, without impacting that downstream plant.
Follow up, if I may, Chair.
May.
So earlier in earlier presentations, there was a 2 settlement pond process. The first settlement pond would have a membrane to protect the effluent from leaching back into the river. The first pond, yes, would settle out the effluent, would have a membrane. The second pond would not have a membrane, I believe, just the water would flow off. And so is this geosynthetic bag filtration system part of a settling pond, or is it a totally different system?
If I may, through the chair, Councillor O'Brien, it's a totally different system. It works off the same basic premises. It's just that you're using like a filter cloth media and a coagulant, as opposed to gravity, time, and 2 ponds. We did a comparison between the 2 systems for construction cost, as well as the operating cost, and those are kind of detailed in the report there. The operating cost is very, very close. There was a couple $1,000s in savings, but the geosynthetic bag was still significantly less construction price than the 2 pond system. So.
Sorry, one more follow-up, if I may. I believe the purpose of requiring the settlement ponds after the fact was because of the excess effluent that was created because of the turbidity. So layman's terms I'm trying here, sorry, but the issue was the amount that the treatment center could put back into the river exceeded what either DFO or the ministry would allow. So is the amount of effluent that can go back into the river not affected with this new system? And just the coagulants are taken out more efficiently? Is that the difference? Sorry, I'm not understanding how this is better because it's just been introduced for the first time in this report. Thank you.
If I may, through the chair, Councillor O'Brien, it's the target is the constituents of that backwash water. It's not the water itself. It's particularly in the winter when they're running alum or aluminum sulfate in the process. It gets entered in prior to those to the filter media. And then when they backwash that media, that's when it gets ejected through the wastewater stream. So that's that 1%, you know, when they say the plant is 99% efficient, it's that backwater wastewater that when they're pushing back through those membranes backwards, they're collecting that aggregated coagulant and or debris sand in that system. And that's what's targeted for removal through the geobag system. So whether it was the geobag system or whether it was the 2 pond settling system or whether or not it was discharging it to the wastewater treatment plant, it's in all scenarios we're still targeting the same end product. The river can, at least so far as I'm understanding, the river can take the water. It just can't take the alum and the constituents that get classified as waste or discharge. So.
Could I add a little appendix to that?
Go ahead.
It's Murray Walters calling. I don't have a camera, sorry. One of the points in Councillor Wallace's question was, was that water originally going to be returned to the river? And originally the effluent, the backwash from the plant was going to be put into the RDN sewer system. So it's not that we're going from dumping that directly into the river. It's a change from taking that effluent into the sewer system to reabsorbing it into the ground once we remove the alum and the coagulant.
Does that clear up your question, Director Wallace?
It does, but I see in the report it says reducing the discharge to the RDN's French Creek Pollution Control Center, as well as reducing capital costs, which is a negligible amount according to this report. What I'm still not understanding is originally the plan was there was an excess amount of effluent that would go through the Pollution Control Center, and now we have an alternative to that. I think perhaps if I could, through the chair, just ask for Mr. Walters to clarify what changed with the amount of effluent.
Yes, and I agree. If we could, if Mr. Walters, if you're still on the line, anyways, the original proposal, as Director Wallace has mentioned, was basically a reduction in the amount of effluent that was going to the treatment center, the sewage treatment plant in French Creek. And now it's changing as if it's actually protecting what's going back into the river. It's almost like it's two different systems that have just been kind of amalgamated. It was one system just going into the treatment center, and now it appears that it's what wastewater is going to be allowed to go back into the river, which, as Director Wallace has pointed out, was kind of not what the original settlement ponds were designed to do. So I see clarification on that as well.
Sure, no problem. I think I can put some light on that. So the plant discharges a certain amount of water. 1% of the water that comes in goes out, basically, and that water has to go somewhere. And in the original plan for the plant, as it commissioned and whatnot, that water was going to go back to the French Creek Pollution Control Center through the sanitary sewer system in the city of Parksville. And there's issues with that because of the capacity of the French Creek Pollution Control Center to take flows at certain times of the year and that kind of thing. And it made sense to find an alternative solution that was going to make that easier to manage for the operators of the plant, to avoid building big holding tanks and things like that to save the sewers. So the first solution that was arrived at by city staff was to put in these series of two settling ponds, one lined, one not lined. So the suspended particulate would settle out in the first pond, and the clear water would flow into the second pond, where it would be soak into the ground and re-enter the aquifer as clean water, which is typically done at a lot of plants like this. So the change between that solution, which was presented at the last meeting, and what's being presented today is that instead of having a series of two ponds, we're using this geobag that provides the filtration or the settling that would have happened in the first pond, and the water then comes through this filtration media and gets reabsorbed into the ground. So the amount of effluent is still the same, it's just where it's going. Does that make any more sense?
It does, thank you. I think what you're confirming is you're adding a different filter. Instead of settling, you're filtering. Is that correct?
That's correct, and it's more effective, we think, and less expensive.
Thank you.
So as I understand it, Mr. Walters, and the geosynthetic bag anyways is going to be the holding of all the sediments and so forth. And so the maintenance is going to be just the emptying of the geosynthetic bag or replacing it.
That's correct.
Thank you. That makes it a lot clearer. Yes. Any other questions at this particular time? Seeing none, I will move on to, oh, sorry, at this point. Now we'll call the vote. All those in favor of, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So now we'll go back to number 2. The original recommendations read that the Englishman River Water Service Management Board approve the 2024 amended financial plan attached as Schedule A for the Englishman River Water Service. Do I have a mover and seconder? Thank you. Is staff getting this, or you want me to call the names? Are you getting it okay? Okay, thank you. That is so moved. Is there any questions at this time? Mayor Main. You're still on mute, Mayor Main. You're still on mute.
I promise I will have this down to an art before September. My understanding is we don't have an amended budget now. We didn't amend it to withdraw the money for the ASR. So would that eliminate the necessity of this?
As I understand it, I think we're just moving and voting on each one of the recommendations as 4 separate ones. And if that's not true, I'll ask Kiva, since she has her hand up.
If I may, through the chair, the reference to the amended financial plan in number 2 is now that it's different from the provisional. So we are not considering the amendment put forward by Chair O'Brien, but the original wording of amended financial plan still needs to stay, just to show the changes that are outlined in the report that are different from the November provisional budget.
Thanks for the clarification.
Thank you. So I'm assuming that we are still voting on this one separately. Is that correct? Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 3, that the Englishman River Water Service Management Board recommends the joint ventures adopt their respective portions of the 2024 amended financial plan attached as Schedule A for the ERWS. I have a mover and seconder, please. Mr. Rogers and Mayor Main. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Number 4, that the Englishman River Water Service Management Board approve approximately $197,500 to CH2M Hill for additional consulting services provided in 2019. I need a mover and seconder. Director Rogers and Mayor Main. Discussion. Having seen none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We'll move on now to further reports from Mrs. Lenora Lee. I believe is still on here. Okay, I see you, Lenora. Okay,
yes.
So Mrs. Lenora Lee from KPMG. Would you please introduce a second report on the agenda regarding 10.2 Englishman River Water Service joint venture draft audited financial statements for the year ending December 31, 2019. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So included in the package are the draft financial statements for ERWS, and I'll also provide highlights of our audit findings letter and the status of our audit. We are substantially complete the audit for the 2019 fiscal year. That work was completed in March, and the financial statements, as included, do present a clean opinion. The auditor's report indicates that there's no material errors within the financial statements, and they are prepared on a comparative basis similar to 2018. Just as a reminder, this set of financial statements does not include amortization expense on the assets that are recorded within it. So it reports only the historical cost of the assets that are constructed within ERWS. In terms of some of the financial highlights, the tangible capital assets at December 31st, 2019 were approximately 42 million. And that included approximately 8.3 million of capital additions during the year. Those assets were moved from work in progress to in use at the end of 2019, consistent with the report previously discussed and the commissioning period. In terms of the funding related to capital construction, there was some provincial funding remaining to be collected at the end of 2019 of 609,000, and capital grants claimed during the year of 277,000. All of the provincial and federal funding is fully exercised at this point, and those are the only two transactions that were reported in 2019 remaining. The notes to the financial statements are quite consistent with previous years and show more detail related to the components of the grant, the components of the assets that are now recorded in use, whereas they were recorded as one work in progress total in previous years. As well, it confirms no change to the proportionate share of each of the joint venture owners. The audit findings report also indicates that there were no changes to significant policies, estimates, or disclosures during the course of the year. We applied a materiality level of 400,000 to the audit, and so that represents the cumulative amount of error that could be in the statements prior to having an impact on our audit opinion. And as mentioned, it is a clean opinion, so there were no adjustments proposed or not proposed that exceeded that value. We did substantially test all of the capital additions during the year, given that many of them are significant dollar amounts, and did not find any material errors within them. Those are the highlights of the statements and findings report that I wanted to touch on, but happy to address any questions.
Thank you, Lenora. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the Englishman River Water Service Draft Audited Financial Statements be received and approved? Thank you, Director Rogers moved. Thank you, Director Wallace seconded. Discussion or questions for Lenora? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thanks very much, Lenora.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 11, businesses rising from delegations. There were no delegations today, so we have no business from that. Moving on to number 12, new business. Does any member of the board have any new business that they wish to present at this time? I'm seeing no hands, no waving, no screaming. I'll suggest no. I would then move on to adjournment. Do I have a mover and a seconder for adjournment at this time? So moved by Mayor Main, seconded by Director Rogers. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. That concludes the ERWS meeting. I'll let the chair of the AWS take over now. I believe, is that not correct? Or is there's a separate chair for AWS, or does the ERWS chair act as that one? If I could clarification, keep.
I think it goes to the CEO to start the new meeting of call for the election and
Right.
AWS separate meeting.
Yes, thanks very much, Bob, because yeah, I'm not even on the AWS. So the thing is that I will transfer the meeting now to AWS to the CAO, Kiva, to bring it forward. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. So it is 3:09, and I'm just going to call the Arrowsmith Watershed meeting to order. And as was reflected by Director Rogers, the first item of business is to elect a chair for the Arrowsmith Watershed service for the 2020 to 2021 year. Anybody willing to step forward or nominate anybody for the chair?
I'd like to nominate Director or Councillor Harrison.
Well, I was actually thinking of doing either Director Rogers or yourself, Mayor Main, but I don't mind. I have enough time for it, so Yeah, I'll stand for it for 1 year if that's okay.
We need a seconder for that.
Is anyone willing to second?
Just to clarify, I have received this agenda. I sat through the last meeting, but I am not on this board, correct? I'm just observing. Thank you.
Yeah, there's only 3 of us, are there not, on this?
I believe so. I'm just trying to pull the item from the emails here. I can't open both things on my screen at the same time. But yes, I believe it's just Qualicum, RDN, and City of Parksville. So if CAO Carlisle is on the call, I believe it's just Councillor Harrison, Mayor Main, and Director Rogers. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
So we need a seconder if Councillor Harrison is willing to accept the chair. If not, we'll need another nomination.
No, I'll second this nomination.
So I'll call the question on that to appoint Councillor Harrison to the chair for Arrowsmith Watershed's service for 2020 to 2021 year. All in favor? Thank you. I will gladly turn the meeting over to Chair Harrison.
Okay, well, this is most unexpected. So the first item of business then would be number 3, approval of the agenda. I'm assuming that there's no amendments that are desired or anything else. So if someone would like to move the agenda. Moved by Director Rogers, seconded by Mayor Main. All those in favor? Thank you. So the agenda has now been moved. Item 4 is the adoption of the minutes. Have there been any issues with the minutes, or are we prepared to move the minutes as is?
Move as is. I'll move them.
Okay. Moved originally by Mayor Main and then seconded by Director Rogers. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Moving onwards then to, there's no delegations that I'm aware of, nor are there any correspondence or unfinished business. We're moving on to number 8, reports. That would be, and I apologize, I don't have a split screen here, so I'm doing the best I can. That'd be Lenora once again with the audited financials. This is Ms. Lee, if you'd like to take the floor.
Sure, thank you. Included in the package are the draft financial statements for Arrowsmith Water Service Joint Venture. The draft audit opinion as attached is also a clean auditor's report that indicates there's no material errors, and the statements present fairly in accordance with the basis of accounting. These financial statements also are reported on a cost basis with no amortization expense. And so the cost of the capital assets have been recorded at historical cost. The joint venture partners recognize the amortization expense directly. There has been limited capital activity in AWS in 2019. The value of the capital assets is $6.4 million. And that has remained consistent on a year-over-year basis. The operating costs were approximately $75,000 for 2019. And there was a contribution to reserves of approximately $30,000 during the course of the year. There's been no change to the proportionate share of each of the partners, and no changes to the accounting standards or policies applied. We had used a materiality of approximately $100,000 in the execution of our audit procedures. With the operating expenses, our procedures are comprised of primarily comparison to both prior year and budget. And we did not note any adjustments that were proposed or recorded as part of the audit process. So pretty limited activity on the capital side in this organization, operating expenses as budgeted, and no significant variances there. Our audit findings letter also confirms our independence for the 2019 year, and there have been no issues with either joint venture to report to the board. Happy to address any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lee. Thank you for doing a very thorough audit, and thank you also for staff for putting us in a position to have a very easy audit to do. If I may now, either Director Rogers or Mayor Main, if you have any questions, this would be a great time.
Yeah, no, I don't have any questions.
Fine.
On here.
Okay, well, seeing no questions, thank you again, Ms. Lee, for your audit. I really appreciate all your hard work. Thank you. If we just want to actually move to receive and approve the audited report.
So
Moved by Mayor Main,
Seconded.
seconded by Director Rogers. All those in favor? Opposed, none, carried unanimously again. And then we move on to the next portion, which is business arising. There are no delegations, so there is no business arising from delegations. Is there any new business you'd like to introduce, gentlemen?
If I might, since this is a separate meeting for the public, that there may be members of the public who's listened in on the ERWS, but not the Aerosmith Water Services. I wonder if one of Parksville staff could give a brief, just to repeat a bit of the condition of the dam and the snowpack and so on, the level of the dam. Some of that information came out in ERWS, but for those who were not participating in that, I think it would be appropriate that if a very brief summary of this, the status of the dam and the water levels at this time was given for the public.
And I would just concur briefly. Should that maybe be directed then to Heidi or Mr. Doxey?
Yeah, through you to either one.
Yeah.
Heidi, go ahead and take this.
Sounds good. So through the chair, I'm going to share my screen again. So the watershed and rainfall update. This is an overview map that shows the locations of the Aerosmith Dam, nearby snow station, location of the river intake, and river gauge. Let's go back, sorry. Due to the locations and elevation of the dam, last week was the first time, the earliest of this year, that we're able to visit our dam. The dam is overflowing with full capacity. This slide shows the historical record of our snow pillow. The photo to the right is as of this morning. The gray band is minimum and maximum range. The blue line is 2020 record. The green line is last year's of 2019. Sorry. This year's snow level from January to March is much lower as compared to the average. However, the snow pickup in April, we're currently over 0.5 meter, just a hair below our normal average. The rainfall. This is a graph of the historical monthly rainfall from 2015 to 2020. The red lines are maximum and minimum range. The dashed line is the average. The black line is 2020 rainfall. It appears we are below our average. March and April months are drier than normal. Englishman River level. Historical record shows the level in the summer months is approximately 1.1 to 1.3 meters. Pretty consistent as we have control of the flow from our dam. However, winter months, the river level is about 1.4 to 4.5 meters, commonly seeing a fluctuation of about 2 meters depending on the rainfall events. It would be about 4 to 4.5 meters with a back-to-back rainfall events. Was that okay, or do you want me to go on?
I think that was fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Heidi.
Really appreciate it, Heidi. Thank you so much. You did an excellent job. Just want to concur with what Councillor O'Brien said earlier. Are there any further things? I'm not sure how we're doing public feedback in the COVID era, so forgive me. I'm not sure with AWS how we do that. But if there's no new business, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda.
Adjournment.
Which would be adjournment. If I can get a motion to adjourn. And seconded by anyone?
Second.
All those in favor, which is basically quorum already by the set move and second, and we're adjourned. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very much, everyone, for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.